At the age of 13, she knew that she wanted to learn to fly. At the age of 16, her parents bought her a flying lesson. And by the age of 20, she had a commercial pilot licence. Little did she know that she was up for a fight just to be able to get a commercial flying job. I'm Ali Hill and welcome to Standout Life, a podcast dedicated to exploring what does it take to live boldly amongst the mess, the busy and sometimes some massive hurdles in this world. Deborah Lawrie has been given many titles, and one of those that sticks with her is Trailblazer. She's the first woman in Australia to become a commercial pilot, but it cost her years and a groundbreaking legal battle with Ansett that she ultimately won in the Australian High Court. Deborah shares in this conversation where her passion for flying comes from, where her tenacity for chasing what's right comes from, and why she continues to tap into that tenacity. Even after she had won the case, she then had to go and work for the company that she had been in a legal battle with. And it took her and her career to some incredible heights, a pun absolutely intended. This conversation with Deborah is remarkable. She was incredibly generous with her insights and her wisdom. And Deborah is actually still flying, which makes her the world's longest flying female airline pilot. So strap in for the tenacity and the groundbreaking energy that comes through in this conversation with Deborah Lawrie. Hey, real quick, before we dive into today's conversation, if you're a leader or a manager, then I want to tell you about pragmatic thinking. We help people like you doing the hard work of building better cultures, stronger teams, and more confident leaders. How do we do it? Well, we do it using the latest in psychology and behavioural science, combining with nearly 3 decades of experience. So visit pragmaticthinking.com or find the link in the show notes below to find out more. Now, on to today's chat. Deborah, it is such a delight to sit down and get into a conversation with you.
Thanks, Ali. Nice to be here.
When you were 14, your father took up the hobby of flying. There's a part of me that wants to ask, was golf not interesting enough for him? But what was it? What drove him to want to pursue flying?
Yeah, good question. He was into horse racing, not golfing, but from a young child, he always wanted to fly, and he had tried to get into the Air Force, but he was too young, and he lied about his age and eventually got into the Navy. This was just at the end of World War II. And by the time he was in his mid-40s or early 40s, he had enough money now to take some flying lessons and do what he always wanted to do. So, and I was 14 at that time.
What did that spark for you in seeing him pick up that hobby?
Well, I'm the eldest of 4 and I was very close to my father. And so I became interested in what he was doing and got into the textbooks and the theory, helped him learn the checklists, all that sort of challenging him but with questions and so forth. And that sparked my interest. Then I used to go to the airport with him, and I would just wait in the car while he had his flying lesson. And then I think I was rewarded for my loyalty. They invited me to sit in the back seat of the aircraft, and I did that on several occasions, and I was always asking questions when the time was right. And the instructor one day turned around and said to me, "How about you learn to fly?" And I wasn't old enough yet, but Dad promised me 2 lessons for when I turned 16, which I had.
You kept him to that commitment.
I kept him to that commitment, yeah.
How long does it take to learn to fly? Like how many weeks or months would have that been for
Well,
your dad?
that depends on how often you take a lesson, and usually that's something that's in a financial budget for most people. So all in all, it probably takes between 30 and 50 hours of flying to get what they call a private pilot's license. Going solo is normally somewhere between 10, 15, 20, could be anywhere around those number of hours. So the time frame really depends on how often you can take a lesson. And when I was 16, because after my first 2 lessons I had to pay for them myself, I could only afford one a month. That was from washing cars and mowing lawns, that sort of thing. So
finding ways to secure that money for the next lesson, I imagine, was a real attraction, a real pull for you.
Yeah. I saved all my pocket money on flying lessons forgo new clothes and things like that. So
that would have been so different amongst your friend group.
It was, yeah. They all thought I was crazy. Looking back, I probably was. But, they were kind of bemused by it. But at the same time, they were interested in what I was doing. Yeah.
From when you talk about your father and obviously that time that you got to spend with him and see him, I can only imagine fall in love with flying, something that he wanted to do. There's a real tenacity that comes with that. What are some of the qualities that do you think he's passed down to you?
Well, Dad didn't actually. He got his private licence, but he didn't continue with flying. I think I probably got my tenacity from my grandfather, who was a very competitive person. Always, probably comes in a little bit later in my story, but always standing up for his what he thought to be right. And so I got that. I was born, I guess, with a competitive spirit and stubbornness, and I only stuck at it at the beginning to prove to my father that I could fly solo. That was as far as I was going to go.
Yes.
And I thought, once I've done that, then I'll just move on to whatever is next. But it was the day that I went solo that I realised, or I caught the flying bug, which is it's a common disease amongst pilots. I caught that well and truly and realised, this is what I'm meant to do. So I developed a real passion for flying and kept going.
Was there a moment when you realised you'd been caught by this disease?
Yeah, when I landed the aeroplane for the first time by myself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you describe that feeling?
Oh, well, it was surreal. First of all, when the instructor jumped out and left me on my own with the engine running and everything and just said, go make one circuit, which I did. And I was just concentrating so hard because I just wanted to make a good landing and do everything as best I could. And after I finished that lesson, I was kind of in a trance. I signed the paperwork, I booked a next lesson, and my mother was waiting for me in the car, which she used to drive me to the airport because I didn't have a driving licence. And she was reading her book, and then we got underway on the way home, and I was still in the cloud nine, as they say. And Mum said to me, what's wrong with you? You know, like I was just in a trance of some sort, I guess. And I said, well, Mum, I just flew the aeroplane by myself. And she just went completely white.
Yes.
Because she thought that I don't know what she thought, but probably
irresponsible, not okay.
Not okay, but was that ever going to happen? Or she just thought I was having a passing phase, trying to do something that my father had done, and eventually that would pass. But so that's how much it impacted me. You know, it was just the most amazing feeling.
So you've been caught by this bug, and your mum got to see that in that moment.
Yeah.
And where you describe, this is what I was meant to do. Did you have any sense of what that might look like, whether it's a career, what to do next? And was there any pushback from your parents of going, oh, that's great, it's been fun, but how about we look over here?
Yeah. I certainly didn't see it as an airline career at that stage. I just knew that I wanted to keep flying, and with flying you have to get more hours up, you have to get different licenses and ratings to become qualified, even qualified enough to apply for an airline job. My mother was, I think she was still bemused by the whole thing. My father was supportive, but he was always saying to me, you need to have another career as a backup because the one you're looking at may not work out. I think he could already see that was going to be difficult.
Yeah.
So he always pushed me to have to be able to fall back on something else. So I went to university and got a science degree, studied teacher training, became a secondary school teacher. At the same time, I was actually learning to become a flying instructor. So I did those two things in parallel.
Yeah, wow.
It was a busy time.
I bet it was.
Yeah.
I bet it was. Trying to juggle both of those kind of parallels and probably the uncertainty of which one you were going to follow.
Well, the teaching one, me to follow, yeah. I was on a teaching scholarship, so I was already bonded for 3 years to school teaching, which I enjoyed, I have to say. The flying I did on weekends and sometimes at night after school.
What was it like having to then learn how to drive after you'd already knew how to fly?
Well, that was actually more difficult. Mum had a manual Volkswagen Beetle, and she taught me in that car, and I'll be damned if I could get that clutch working properly.
Put me in a plane.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Much easier. And we were in an area of Melbourne. I don't know if everybody knows Warrigal Road, but it's got some very significant hills in Melbourne. And doing these handbrake starts was just a nightmare until I got the hang of it, mind you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. A different vehicle of to be learning how to operate. Now, I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you went and got your commercial pilot's license at the age of 18?
18, yeah.
What was it that drove you to pursue getting a commercial pilot's license?
Simply, once you have a commercial license, you can fly and earn money. So I thought, what better than to do what I really love doing and get paid to do it?
Yeah.
So even though that in the early days was just simply doing joy flights or things like that, it did lead on to then going on and getting an instructor's rating. And I was a flying instructor for many, many hours, and I really, really enjoyed doing that. All the ways building towards getting more and more hours in my logbook, and that's when I started looking towards an even higher career level, if you want to call it that. To go to the pinnacle in the industry was to get an airline job.
Did you have the opportunity to connect with any commercial pilots to understand what that was like as an option?
Yeah, when I was 16, I became a member of the Australian Women Pilots Association. It was, in those days, it was more or less, coffee and scones and stuff, and little conversations about women who were sometimes married to guys who had a lot of money, and so they just more or less did this as a hobby.
Right.
But there were some, of course, also who were more serious, who also had become flying instructors. And one of those ladies was married to an airline pilot. He flew for TAA. So Bronwyn and I did a lot of air racing together. And because of my connection with her, I also was able to be connected to someone who was in the airline industry. So I had a little bit of an insight there. And then there was another member of the group too who was married to a Qantas pilot. He'd been a Qantas cadet and had gone through to become a first officer with Qantas. And so I learned a lot from him as well. So there were connections.
Yeah, conversations, no doubt you would have
Conversations.
heard and understood. I can't go past racing.
Oh, air racing. I love air racing.
Tell me a little bit about air racing.
Yeah.
What is it? What do you love about it?
If you can imagine car rallies, cross-country stuff, so some of the air races were what we call navigation trials, where they were speed, fuel efficiency, being able to recognise objects on the ground, so you could prove that you flew over that particular point. But the Australian Women Pilots Association started an air race called the Freda Thompson Aerial Derby, named after Freda Thompson, who was a very significant aviator in Australia's history as well. And this race was more or less like a precursor to the Red Bull type of racing. Yes. So we would take off from, you had to fly solo, and we had to take off from Moorabbin Airport, and we flew around certain waypoints around Port Phillip Bay. So, for example, Grovedale, all the way around the bay to get back to Moorabbin. And we used to do it one direction one year, and the following year they'd do it in the reverse direction.
Right.
And they had people on the ground with big orange markers that you had to fly around the marker. So if you cut the corner, you lost a significant number of points, so it wasn't worth doing that. And so the accuracy came into that as well. But not only that, you were given you could only use the engine to 75% of its maximum power. You just couldn't go flat chat. And they used to measure that by how much fuel you'd burnt.
Right.
So it was a very precise type of race.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun, and it was one of those things where you get up early in the morning, go out, clean the aeroplane like schmick so that you can get the best speed out of it.
Yeah.
And I even used to know which aeroplanes flew better. Wow. So they're the same type of, same model aircraft on our line, but I knew the one that was slightly better rigged than all the others, and that would be the one I would race.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. Just so in tune with the craft itself, the wind and understanding what was happening. I imagine that would have been
it was great.
Remarkable, and what a way to really hone so many of those skills.
Yeah.
I understand you also did flying safaris around Australia with your friend. Talk to me a little bit about those.
I did. When I was at university, I managed to convince several friends that they needed to do safaris with me around Australia.
You could have convinced me, Deborah, if we were friends, for sure.
So I used to plan these things. We'd go, the first one, we actually went right up through the centre of Australia to Darwin, landed in Darwin 3 weeks before Cyclone Tracy, which was very fortunate, and then made our way down the west coast of Australia to Perth, and then flew across the Nullarbor back to Moorabbin. But that wasn't just about taking those friends on a trip, and of course I got lots of hours under my belt doing that, but I used to teach them all how to do something on the way. So one of them learned how to, tie the aeroplane down, taught them how to navigate, refuel, because I felt that they were more involved if they had a task to do. So it was a lot of fun. Everybody enjoyed it, and one of my girlfriends, I'll never forget this, because there's a lot of acronyms in aviation, and you're using them all the time, and people ask what they are. One day I forget where we were, but something was wrong, and we were going to have a little trouble with getting the aeroplane ready in time. And I said, this is something was RS, and this girlfriend, she says, RS? What does that mean? I said, rat shit. Which she wasn't. She wasn't expecting that to come out like this. Oh, okay, good. So,
keep the acronyms going.
That's right. Yeah.
So you have this backup career. You're studying teaching, but you also have your commercial license, and you decide that you want to start to put yourself forward for jobs with airlines.
Yep.
Talk to me about that decision, and even when you started putting in job applications.
Well, I was, as I said, instructing at Moorabbin, and instructors and charter pilots and everybody else at Moorabbin, we always went to the Aero Club after work, and just hearing discussions with other guys, and they were putting in their applications for airlines, and they were getting interviewed and they were getting selected, and I just thought, okay, well, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. And I was like patted on the head, and no uncertain terms, don't waste your time. You're ahead of your time. Mm. Airlines don't have any women. They're never going to have any women in the near future, maybe even ever, So they said, just be happy with what you've got. Well, no. Mm. So despite all their warnings about, that I would never succeed in this and don't even try, I started writing letters to both airlines. I didn't apply to Qantas because I thought that was just maybe a bridge too far. Mm. But I applied to Ansett and TAA. I think TAA probably threw it in the bin because I never heard from them. But Ansett kept sending me back replies saying, oh, yeah, nice. Let us know when you've got more hours, or let us know when you've got more qualifications. Okay. And this went on for quite some time.
Did that initially feel like a possibility?
It did. Yeah, it did, until after more than a year of this. And it was clear that I was just being placated with these responses. And someone said to me, oh, they're just waiting till you turn 27. Well, that was still a few years away, but the cutoff age for pilot trainees in those days was 27.
Right.
So as soon as I hit that age, which was about 4 years away, they wouldn't have to deal with me anymore.
Right.
So
what did that feel like to hear that statement?
Oh, I was
being frustrating.
I was so frustrated. So I decided to up the ante, and I actually wrote to them and said, well, I know of people who are getting interviews and everything that are less qualified than me, and because I've been teaching these guys even, and that somehow triggered something because they invited me in to check out my licence and logbook. That was the first step. And then after that passed the muster, they said, well, we'll invite you in for another interview when we need a pilot intake. And they warned me that might take some time, and it did. I think it took nearly another year for that to happen. Yeah. But then in July of 1978, I was invited in for that second interview, and that was quite an ordeal in itself. But after the interview, I had heard on the grapevine that if they sent you off to do a psychological test, it meant that they were processing you further. Right. And at the end of that interview, they gave me details of where to go to do this psychological test. So I was quietly confident maybe this was going okay. Mm. And later on, I did manage to get the results of that psych test, and they were very good, even with a recommendation to the airline that I be employed.
Right.
Yeah, and which I found out later, of course. But
yes.
So I was very disturbed when I got a letter from them to say that my application was unsuccessful, and good luck with your rest of your career, whatever that may be.
So this year, 2026, it's nearly 50 years ago that you embarked on this discrimination case with Ansett, which eventually, over time, became a landmark High Court battle that you were successful with. We often think that courage is boldness. How much of it was boldness to embark on the legal action? How much of it was pure frustration at this point?
I would say 100% of it was naivety, right?
Of course.
Yeah. If someone had have told me laid out what was going to happen, I might have thought twice about it. And the Commissioner of Equal Opportunity did warn me that it could get very nasty. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, okay.
What did that mean to you at the time? What did you think that might have meant?
That they would fight hard. And I thought, well, but I'm right. So I can fight as well.
Give it a go.
I'll give it a go. But I thought in my 25-year-old naive brain that it would be a week.
Yep.
And it would be over and done with. Yep. And, of course, that was not the case at all. It dragged on for a year and it finally went to the High Court. So what I'm trying to say here is not knowing what was ahead of me was a good thing.
Yeah.
Because that meant I just kept going. I got myself up every day, as frustrated as I was and as angry as I was sometimes. I just knew I had to keep going because they were not going to outlast me. I was determined about that. They didn't realise how stubborn I was.
What helped you to keep going? Because no doubt sometimes the people closest to us, the ones who love us the most, are the ones that are saying, look, you've done your best.
Yeah.
There's always teaching.
Yeah.
What helped you to be able to keep getting up and going?
Well, my mother for sure was the one saying, she was worried I was losing weight, I was getting stressed, that this was not going to end well. So she, even though she supported me very strongly, she was very worried that this was going to do significant damage. What kept me going was simply I knew I was right. I knew I had been discriminated against. I knew I could do what I said I could do, which was fly. And so for me, it was unfair. So I think that's where my grandfather's genes kicked in, I think. And I just thought, no, I don't care. They're not going to beat me.
What was that moment like when you know that the High Court had passed down in your favour?
Well, it was a weird set of circumstances because the Equal Opportunity Board had ruled that I be employed on the next pilot intake. Ansett had been delaying these intakes because they didn't want me, of course, and they were hoping that the High Court would rule in their favour. So when I had already started ground school training a few days after the High Court hearing, and the High Court does not hand down a ruling for several months. So I was in this weird situation where I was in the ground school and they were waiting for a decision from the High Court so they could get rid of me. The day that the High Court decision was handed down was the same day that I did my last flight test to qualify to go and fly as a first officer. Right. So two really significant things happened on exactly the same day.
Yeah, monumental.
It was because the check flight was quite gruelling. It was a 2-day affair and with 2 check captains watching over my shoulder and I was just so anxious to pass this thing because it meant my career would then take off, or if I failed, that would be probably the end of it. So that was the big thing on my mind. And when we arrived back at Melbourne Airport, 2 company guys in suits came and escorted me off the aircraft. And I wondered why, what were they doing, and I just thought, oh, I know what it is. There'll be press around, because this is the day that I'm doing my check, and all these kind of key landmark points were,
converging,
and all that sort of thing. So they escorted me away very quickly, and they said, we're going to take you in through the back corridors to the main office. And I thought, this is like really weird. Mm-hmm. But then they said to me, the High Court's just handed down their decision. And I almost stopped dead in my tracks because I thought, I've just passed a flying test because they yelled out and said I passed. But maybe I was going to be, get it in one hand and be taken away in the other exactly the same day. And I'll never forget, one of them turned around and said, don't worry, you'll like it. So
the relief.
I know
The relief of
it
that.
was. Yeah. So it was a super high that day.
Yeah, I can imagine. Imagine. I mean, your memoir is called Touching the Sky, and I think in some ways that day might have been the pinnacle of it in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
What lessons from the experience of going through that discrimination case have stuck with you?
I knew that I had to be beyond reproach the whole time. So I had to be also very careful about what I said.
Yep.
There were many, one reporter in particular, Pam Graham, was very supportive of my fight. And she used to allow me to vent off camera before they rolled the cameras. So it was quite interesting.
You need those people in your corner, don't you?
You do. So I had my weekly allocation of swear words all in one 5-minute period. But anyway, what I always felt I had to do was not make any mistakes, not show any vulnerable emotions, all that sort of thing. And what I've learned over time is it's actually okay to make mistakes and it's okay to show your human side. But back at that time, that was the lesson I had to.
You would have felt like you were under the microscope. You didn't want any other reason to not be.
I was so much under the microscope it wasn't funny. I mean, I walked into the first day I was in ground school, I walked into the Ansett canteen over in the main terminal building, which was where all the employees went for lunch. And you can imagine the crash bang of plates and knives and forks and all that sort of shit going on. I walked in, the whole place went dead quiet, and everybody just watched me, watched what I was picking out to put on the plate. I was like, oh my God, this is the last time I'm coming here for lunch. And it wasn't until I sat down, and they all just sort of started up their conversations again. And so that was the kind of microscope that I was under.
You would have felt in every movement and every moment.
Yeah.
So having won the case and then being given a position with Ansett, I imagine that, again, being under the microscope.
Oh, the whole time,
would have been very difficult.
Yeah, it was very difficult. I mean, pilots are under scrutiny even normally. Like we're getting checked all the time, as you can imagine. All different tests that you've got to pass, different hoops you've got to jump through. But for me, it was like not just those times, but all the time, just being on my guard, I guess, for many, many years before I could start to relax a little bit more.
Did you have any support with colleagues within the organisation?
Yeah, I had several flight attendants were really, really supportive. They were great friends. Had lots of male colleagues, lots of pilots who were really very, very supportive. I also had another issue that was like a double-edged sword because they must have gone home and spoken to their wives, about me. And so at one point there I was also accused of...
Just let me have one thing. I don't need to
breaking up.
Too much time with
spending
husbands.
too much time, yeah. After all, you fly with somebody for a month, you do learn what they have for breakfast and things like that.
Yeah.
So I had to be careful with that as well, that I wasn't seen to be, in doing the wrong thing there.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Where was your first commercial flight?
That was from Alice Springs to Tennant Creek.
And what was that like?
Oh, it was
short.
Short. Well, not really, because it's in the F-27, so they're a bit slower. But I think my training captain was amazing, and he had already said to the company he would not train me if their intention was just to fail me at the end.
Great.
Yeah, so he was amazing, and he'd got to Alice Springs the day before because I was held up with paperwork and had to follow the following day. And I thought I'd be free of the press at last, but I wasn't. And they were out waiting for me, and they just wanted to take some photos before I got on this aeroplane. And Alan, my instructor, said, just off you go, just go do the photos, square that away and we can get underway. He was really good. I went out there, stood by the wheel of this thing, the landing gear, and this aeroplane has struts, of course, on the landing gear, and the photographer wanted me to lean on one of these struts, so I obliged, and as soon as I did that, I was aware of this huge oil slick that was down my arm. Mm-hmm. So now I was like dishevelled in a way, and I went back to the flight deck, and Alan could see the forlorn look on my face because I was just in a mess. Mm. She said, "Don't worry, just clean up. We'll get going." Yeah. So once we got airborne, I was in my good space. I felt comfortable. Mm. Yeah, I was back doing what
This is where I feel like
I was at home. Yeah.
Yeah. You've obviously flown hours and hours and thousands, I imagine, of hours across your career. Mm. Is there any flights that stick with you that are memorable?
There's a lot of flights that stick with me. I've got my top 10, and I think a couple of them are in the book. That probably my number one scariest flight was when I was working with flying with KLM Cityhopper in Amsterdam, and we flew from Amsterdam to Stavanger in Norway, apart from many other places. But we were in winter conditions and we're above the North Sea, and this aeroplane developed an icing problem in the engines. And that's quite a complicated story, but it was something that was out of my control, and it was resolved. It got resolved, but the moments of sheer, I just thought my number was up completely.
Yes.
And like your life goes in front of your face, but I think the one thing I kept saying to myself was that this can't be happening. It's actually not happening because my son's in the creche and I have to pick him up at the end of the day. So let's get on with this and sort it out. But eventually the situation resolved itself because we were down to an altitude where this ice melted, and everything turned out well. So
I can only imagine that that capacity to be able to not only remain rational but also become for others as a really pivotal role on a plane, not only the person who's flying it and is charged, but there's a real leadership quality that comes with that. What have you learnt about the importance of that in your role and having been in your career, whether it's been something you've seen role modelled from others or key skills that you've learnt?
Well, in any career such as mine where you're learning all the time, and I've flew for many years beside several different captains, and I knew which qualities I wanted to extract and take with me and the ones that I was going to leave behind. And so I had lots of good examples to follow, but I always worked on the theory that if your crew is happy, they will do anything for you. And at the same time, if you stick up for them and look after them, they'll do anything for you. So I've always adopted that style of leadership, that I'll take them with me, not order them around as such, but, that they would actually want to be doing what I've asked them to do. Mm-hmm. And on that particular day with that icing event, I had a very young first officer with me. He was only 3 weeks out on the line.
Right.
And he was very, very green and not understanding what was going on at all. And I looked at him and I realised I had to give him some tasks to do to take his mind off what the situation was. So I think the leadership is also being able to empathise with who you're leading and adjusting that style to suit, to get the best out of that person who is with you.
Understanding their context. It had been someone who had had a lot of experience and might have been a different
scenario. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a favourite flight or one that comes to mind that kind of really gives you a sense of joy?
I have, well, there's lots of flights that are amazing for all sorts of different reasons. I think the ones that I remember as being quite special are the ones that made me feel quite humble. And one of them was we used to do these wish flights for children who were terminally ill. And one day we had a little boy on board who was only 11, and he had wanted to visit the Ferrari factory in Italy. And we were taking him back to Amsterdam and knew of him on board and invited him up to the cockpit because it was before 9/11, before they closed the cockpit doors. And I remember seeing the look in his eyes and the wonderment with what he could see, and feeling so humble that for me it was just every day. I did this every day, but for him it was so special. And, it was a very emotional, moving, it makes me even a little bit, now to think about that.
Yeah, the reference of and the responsibility, I can only imagine that role and what it would have been like to see through those eyes.
Yeah.
And all of us have our own inner children, right? Like that kind of what looking back on what that might have been.
Yeah, just that it meant so much to him, and it, that was all I could give him. I wanted to give him a lot more. Do you know what I mean? So, but that was, it was. Similar thing happened when we brought some orphans back from the Kobe earthquake. So it was, same sort of thing. These children have just lost their parents, Yeah.
A real sense of who you are transporting, who you are escorting.
Well, but they thought this was a special moment in their lives, and to be, to be in touch with that was just quite special.
Do you have a sense of what your career has opened up in terms of other female pilots in the commercial?
Oh, it's made there's no barriers to entry anymore. So in that respect, the women are welcomed into the industry rather than me, like what happened to me. But it's also what's happened is that it's opened up other areas in the industry as well, not just piloting, but air traffic control, engineering, maintenance engineering, refuelers now, some of them are women, loading aircraft, all sorts of different jobs that women do now that were never, ever done by women when I first started.
What does that feel like to see that change?
Well, it's great. I mean, I love it. I think, the girls do a great job. They really, really do. And I think International Women's Day a couple of years ago, we did a flight from Melbourne to Brisbane, and it was all arranged that the whole flight from go to woe was just completely managed by women. So, so you could just say, all of us as a team pulled that off. Yeah. It's amazing.
It's been incredible to witness. A lot of my listeners are in all sorts of different kind of careers, and one of the messages, even now, that when I think about your experience over 50 years ago, is almost this sense of you need to be competent, so you need to be good at what you do, and then if you just keep turning up, eventually someone will notice and pay attention. And yet there is often so many other reasons as to why there's not someone tapping you on the shoulder. What advice or encouragement might you give for those who still have that experience? Hey, I'm good, I just need to bunker down, keep doing good work, and someone will eventually notice.
Yeah. I think the biggest mistake women make is not going for a position because they don't think they're qualified enough. And if they only knew that half the men that go for these positions aren't qualified either,
exactly.
or whatever.
Yes.
but they'll give it a go. So it's about trusting or backing yourself. And you may not be quite qualified or whatever, but you can get there. You just have to maybe just do a few little things and you'll be right. So if you sit around and wait for someone to tap you on the shoulder, those ones that are going, well, I'm going to go for it, they will always get selected ahead of you. So you've got to put yourself in the mix.
Yep.
You've got to throw your hat in the ring and go, I'm here, I can actually do this. And seize opportunities where you can shine. Maybe there is something that you're better at and you know that that's your strength, so play to your strengths.
There is a flyover in Sydney that has been named after you, and your memoir, Touching the Sky, is a remarkable book to really, and it goes even further into some of the things that we've touched on in this conversation. What has that process been like to reflect back on your career? Because so often we're just living life and doing the next kind of step, but to take these moments to kind of pause, look back, to actually pull together the writing of those stories. What was that experience like?
It's a very kind of cathartic, is that the right word? Yeah, cathartic experience. Like I had been flying with people over many years and, you tell stories on the flight deck and they're going, you need to write them down. You need to write a book. And I guess I do, yeah. So reliving those experiences has been amazing because there were far many more ups than downs, and that's important, I think, to keep yourself going like that. Did I think that I would be able I was concerned, will anyone want to read this book? Will anyone find it interesting? That sort of concerned me a little bit. But then I had to, take my own medicine and say, just give it a go, put it out there. But I have to say that, a couple of sounding boards, friends who were sounding boards along the way said, no, this is good. Keep going. And that encouragement was really amazing. But I really also wanted to get this down so that it was an accurate representation of what occurred then, rather than it maybe being picked up somewhere down the track where I'm no longer here.
Yeah.
And the facts wouldn't be properly known. This kind of happened to my grandfather. A book was written about him after he died, and there were inaccuracies in it that my mother always was a little bit annoyed about. And so I think that was in the back of my mind as well, that I didn't want that same thing to happen to me.
Important to have your voice.
Yeah, that's exactly
stories.
right, yeah. But also for my son and my granddaughter that they would know who I was. Yeah.
As a passenger, what kind of flyer are you?
Oh, very good. No, I specialise in good landings. It's quite funny. You tend to forget that you've got the rest of the aeroplane connected to you.
Yes, yeah.
That does happen a bit, and then you sort of go, oh, yeah, turbulence. Yeah, well, we better take care of this because we've got people down the back. I think the time that I've been most conscious of the back of the aircraft is when we carried racehorses, and that was with Ansett, and we had a freighter, and we'd take these horses backwards and forwards to New Zealand. And horses, because they're on their feet, you've got to be very careful on the ground as well, that you don't take corners too sharply and all this sort of thing.
Of course.
So, yeah, so in answer to the question, I try to give the smoothest, best possible flight. Yeah. Given that I can't control the weather, but
yes. Yeah. Take pride in the smooth kind of landing. If someone is a nervous flyer, what might help them?
I've had nervous flyers. I once had a lady who wanted to get off just as we were about to enter the runway, and I actually said to my co-pilot, first officer, I said, you just sit. We're just going to sit here. We're going to just sit. Tell air traffic control we're not going anywhere. I went out of the flight deck and went and spoke to her personally. And took me about 5 minutes, but I convinced her that everything would be fine and just to stay. She stayed on board.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah,
What a real human connection experience to have with her as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, people are nervous about flying for all sorts of different reasons. So it's about finding out what the real reason is for their. I had a student once when I was teaching flying, and I never forget him, but he became quite stressed as soon as we got in the aircraft and closed the door and taxied out to the runway. He was like stressed like you wouldn't believe. And once we got airborne, he was okay. And I just thought, what's going on with him? And it turned out he had some sort of, reaction, a claustrophobic reaction on the ground. But so I said to him, well, shall we just leave the door cracked open until we're ready to take off? And as soon as we did that, he was fine.
Right.
Yeah. So I'd taxi out there in the freezing cold with the wind coming in. And, we're just about to line up on the runway, and that would be the last thing I would do is just shut and lock the door. And he was fine.
There you go, the problem solving in so many areas.
Yeah, women are good at that.
They're very good at that. Are you still flying?
Yes, yeah.
Are there any milestones that you still want to tick off?
No, I think I ticked off the 20,000 hour mark a year ago or so. So that was what I wanted to get, or a couple of years ago, that's what I wanted to get to. To go out gracefully is probably the one I want to do, but when that'll be, I don't know.
You've obviously been, talk about almost that's home, being up in the air, and you've been in aviation for decades. What is it that's still magical about flying?
I think for me, it's the camaraderie with your other workmates. It's the freedom up there, even though that's not entirely correct, but you do feel freer. It's interesting looking down. Sometimes you see all the traffic and all that sort of stuff.
You're above it all.
Above it all, yeah. And sometimes I often think about what's everyone on the ground doing now, So, yeah.
Wishing they were flying, probably.
Oh, yeah. Maybe not, but, yeah.
Obviously, your father taking up this hobby to fly and almost that, carrot of wanting to continue doing the thing that he didn't quite kind of finish off. When you did actually win that discrimination case and got the job at Ansett, what were your parents' reactions?
Well, unfortunately, my parents had a very bitter split up when I was 17, 18. And I became estranged from my father for a number of years because he married someone else who was quite destructive in terms of our family, or towards our family. So, I didn't reconnect with my father until actually after my son was born. So he missed out on that era. I think he regretted that later in life. My mother was certainly there for that moment.
Yeah.
But my father, who I've always wanted to impress, wasn't.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
And then you got to do it for yourself for other reasons, I can imagine. What does it mean for your son, having seen the career that you've had?
Well, my son wrote the foreword to my book, and it's very, to me, it's just a tearjerker, the way he has seen through his eyes my career. And I'm proud of him for a number of reasons. Number one, that he wrote that, and number two, that he's followed in my footsteps, and that he's turned out to be a great human being that he is today. So
it's powerful, right?
His forward is extremely powerful. Yeah, when my publisher, we spoke about someone to write the forward, and she said, forwards can make or break a book sometimes, and I went, oh. Anyway, so when he was suggested as a possibility of writing the foreword, they thought that was a great idea. But we were all blown away by what he wrote.
Yeah.
So
the rawness of that experience of him to, as you say, follow your footsteps and that legacy that things get to continue.
Well, that he's, but also through his eyes, you know, it was through his you're seeing yourself through someone else's eyes, that someone who's very important to you, of course. And when you, it was, as I said, it brought tears to my eyes, but it also brought tears to the eyes of people who know me. So it was kind of interesting.
When you can go back to the publisher and go, I think we made it.
They tick for that one.
Tick for the forward as well. Deborah, your career is extraordinary, but your insights, there's a real human connection to what you do and how you continue to turn up. And thank you so much for kind of sharing your stories. The name of this podcast is called Standout Life. When you hear that term, what does that mean to you, to live a standout life?
Well, a lot of people say there's not been anything spectacular in my life, but I'm a great believer in that everyone has something interesting to say. So I think standout life speaks to, it might be big or it might be small, but it doesn't matter. Somebody somewhere will find it interesting.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Share your voice, share your story.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Deborah.
No worries. Thank you.
Once again, thank you so much for tuning in. If you liked what you heard in today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe and also share this with someone who might also get value out of this episode. It's what helps us to continue to bring these incredible conversations. And if you want to be a better leader at work or in your business, then I want to tell you about pragmatic thinking. We help people just like you build stronger teams, healthier cultures, and true leadership confidence. We do it with a background in psychology and behavioural science combined with nearly 3 decades of proven experience. Thousands of incredible organisations trust us to level up their leaders, and potentially you will too. So please visit pragmaticthinking.com or check out the show notes below. Until next time, have a fantastic week.